Well, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet sold 10 million copies in 3 days, one of the fastest selling Nintendo games ever. It's the fastest selling Pokemon, Switch, Nintendo, and console exclusive ever, despite all of the technical faults and frame rate issues that any other game would be crucified for. And I also contributed to the money printing machine known as Pokemon because pretty steelbook. Now, as a veteran player myself, Pokemon games since the 6th generation have been a little bit easier and handholdy than older 2D titles. As with Sword and Shield, I decided I would attempt a Nuzlocke challenge run for my first playthrough to keep things interesting. This time round, I've decided to stream the gameplay and condense it down into a nice little adventure for all of you to watch. So, here are the rules of the Nuzlocke. I can only catch the first Pokemon I see in a new area. If it faints, bad luck, you miss the encounter. All Pokemon must be nicknamed in order to strengthen the bonds with them, and if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead or no longer usable and must be boxed. Gift Pokemon are acceptable. While running this game, I did encounter a potential issue when doing a Nuzlocke run. Random encounters are completely gone from the game, so this does make the random element a little bit harder to make, but for this rule set, I've decided to go with the first Pokemon I see in a new area as the encounter. If there are 2 Pokemon, I would try and go for the newest Pokemon, focusing on the new Paldean Pokemon. And if you got this video on in the background while studying, or falling asleep, or if you're just watching to see how much of a car crash this will be, then be sure to hit the like button because it helps others find my content. With that all out of the way, let's get started. After launching the game, picking my character, setting my name, we meet the starters, and it's time to pick. I pick my boy Quaxley and name him Jotaro, but then remember probably about an hour later that Josuke is actually the one with the Popador, so I change that later. Our rival Nemona picks Furcoco, the Fire Croc, and challenges us to a battle. We steamroller with a water gun and move on to catching a Pokemon. Nemona forces us into a fight with Lechonk, but I don't want this to be our first encounter since it's an on-rails fight. I beat this, then encounter the Tarantula, our first Paldean bud, which we call Yanni. We then find ourselves yeeted off a cliff, following a suspicious noise which is revealed to be the cover legendary Koraidon. We feed him some lunch, and that gives him enough motivation to become the WWE World Champ as he tombstones every boulder in the cave. This also counts as a new area, so we snag a Yangoose, who we appropriately name after a questionable ex-president, and move on. I'm gonna come! We make our way through the cave for our Nuzlocke to almost end instantly with a level 40 Houndoom staring us down. Koraidon saves us and we're back outside. Up from here we run into a suspicious dude named Arven. We beat him in a battle and Arven entrusts us with Koraidon, and Nemona says we still need to head to school. We're still walking to school apparently? She tells us to meet at the capital city, giving us a little bit of freedom to explore. We go ahead and catch 2 new Pokemon in this area. Sillybugger the Fletchling, and a shiny Squovit. By the way, we're not using the shiny Squovit, I just couldn't pass up a shiny. After some training, the team looks good to move on. Nemona greets us at the gate and wants to battle again. Now, Nemona's kinda like Goku. She wants to fight anytime, whenever. So she presents her first real challenge and our exposure to the mechanics of the game, terrestrialization. She buffs up her original Pikachu, and my entire team is effectively weak against electric types. We lost our ex-president in a sacrifice in order to heal up our mons. He won't be missed. We spam potions and struggle bug with Yanni, which were able to lower Pormi's special attack low enough to live at least 2 hits and save our ass. After beating Nemona, we train for a little bit more and then head into Mesagoza. We then meet a new student being harassed by some bullies from Team Star with the so lame it's cool kind of catchphrase. Hasta la vista, baby. After learning how to terrestrialize, we make quick work of them, and the student introduces herself as Penny. After 2 hours of gameplay, we finally reach the school. Re-meet everyone, which introduces us to the 3 main storylines. The first one being the Pokemon Gym Challenge with Nemona, the Path of Legends with Arven, where we can fight giant Titan Pokemon while hunting for mysterious herbs, and Operation Starfall with Cassiopeia, where we take on Team Star's commanders. We also managed to meet Professor Sada, and she allows us to keep Koraidon as we need to let it regain its powers. And then funnily enough, we have a 2-month time skip. After this skip, the game completely opens up and lets you do anything that you want in any order. However, we do discover later that there is a suggested order based on the levels of the challenges. Staying true to Pokemon's roots, I head west on Nemona's suggestion to head to the first gym. In this first zone, we encounter a Mareep, which we promptly call Gigavolt. During our travels to the next town, after a rough battle, our Josuke evolves into Quaxwell. I should also mention that Gigavolt evolves into Flaffy. Proceeding to Cortondo, I see a few Jigglypuffs get sent to the moon, and I head straight for the gym building to take on the leader. In these games, they require you to do a small quest before taking on the gym leader. These range from mini-games to battling, very similar to the trials found in Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. The first gym challenge requires us to push an olive all the way through the obstacle course. Fairly straightforward overall, but the main takeaway from this challenge is that the theme is an absolute banger. After completing this, we're whisked back to the gym to take on the leader. The bug-type leader, Katie, is introduced and the battle begins. Silly Bugger makes quick work of her first two Pokemon, and then the game states that Katie is about to send in Teddiursa. I begin questioning everything I know about Pokemon, as Teddiursa is a pure normal type. I question, is there a regional variant? Have I seen any promos on a bug Teddiursa? What kind of nightmare fuel would bug Teddiursa even look like? Then it hits me. Terastallization. She's going to change it to a bug type. So, I kill it with Silly Bugger, and we've got our first badge. After finishing up at the first gym, we pick the next location, which looks to be the water gym. So still heading northwest, we reach a new area, which allows us to catch a new member of the team. Our newest buddy is Capsicum, the Capsicid. This is legit one of the smallest Pokemon I've seen. Look at the little dude. Then about 3 minutes later I realized that we could have caught a Chardet, and I was instantly disappointed. Our Yanni evolves into a Spitops, which is a bloke you'd never want to meet in a dark alley. Taking in the scenery and the low frame rate, we end up in a very dicey battle with a trainer, which has an evolved form of Lechonk. This battle should have been a warning of things to come. On the way, we pass one of the Titan Pokemon causing havoc on a local mountain. Looking at our team, we probably don't have something to deal with this at the moment, so we just act like Frieza and ignore the bird for now. We then bolster our team a little bit more by heading to the east side of the map to nab some extra Pokemon. We get a hold of a Makuhita called Cartman,
and you will respect my authority.
And a new Pokemon, Neclee, which we call Rocks. After getting a full team, we continue back to the west side where we left off. However, we've hit a roadblock. One of Team Star's bosses is camped out and blocking the only way through. Even with Koraidon's jump, we can't get over the wall or into the next area. Since there's no other ways to get around it, I decide to push through. Before taking on the team, the very obvious, not Director Clavel, rather, Clive, lends us some assistance with Team Star. The game explains that we need to battle Team Star members with the auto battle feature, and it allows us to use up to 3 Pokemon at the same time to take them down. Since this is a dark themed base, I decide to lead in with Josuke, Gigavolt, and Silly Bugger. After we cause enough chaos, the leader, Giacomo, rocks up. He challenges us to a fight and leads off with his Ponard. Josuke one-hit kills this with a low sweep. Feeling confident, the leader sends out Revavroom, a new Pokemon based on a car motor. But let's compare a regular Revavroom to the Team Star one. Not only does its typing update to the boss's theme, but it's also classified as a raid boss.
That's quite big.
Leading in with a metal sound, Josuke takes a solid 50% damage from Snarl before I can swing back with 2 workups. He then dies to a critical hit. At this moment is where I realize we might be in trouble. I follow up with Silly Bugger, and we take 2 metal sounds as he tries to swing back with a few moves, but to no avail. He manages to chip Revavroom down to 30% health before he falls to another Snarl. Our saving grace is Gigavolt, who's able to do just enough damage to save our ass while living on 6 HP. Giacomo goes down. Some backstory happens and we prepare the burial for our 2 lost mons. Penny also drops off some supplies to us on behalf of Cassiopeia. It's almost like she knew exactly where we were. Curious. After regrouping, we make our way down to the water city of Casacarva and beeline it straight to the desert, desperately to fill our 6th spot on the team. Crimson the Rufflet joins the squad. I decide to grind a little bit in preparation for the next major challenge, the water gym. The leader Kofu legs it all the way to the next town before we can take him on, and we are tasked with returning his forgotten wallet to him in Porto Marinada. With a quick sprint across the desert, we encounter new Pokemon, Girafarig, which we call Banana. I start fresh on a new day before heading into the port. I completed a little bit of research to see if these gyms were supposed to be completed in a certain order, and to my absolute shock, the game does not scale with you accordingly. Who would have thought in a game that allows you to go anywhere at any time wouldn't scale? Regardless, it's suggested that we take on the water gym much later. Heading east, our next plan of motion is to take on the Cliff Titan, and let's just say, we may have over-prepared. Cloth goes down super quickly to a Mega Arm Thrust from Cartman. Arven gives us a bit of backstory on why he's hunting down these ingredients, and the sandwich he makes restores a bit of Koraidon's power, allowing him to dash. Moving on to the next city of Artisan, we explore the town a little bit before making it to the next area and snag a new Pokemon. Koga the Venonat joins the team and subsequently poisons Cartman, and we immediately get locked into another fight with a Paldea and Tauros, and we get another cheesy death.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. You dick! Later!
After rounding up some Sunflora and watching Roxanne evolve into the Minecraft pig, it's time to take on the next gym leader, Brassius. Crimson makes short work of his first 2 Pokemon before we're forced to switch into his wannabe tree, Sudowoodo. A deadly combination of Power Hacks and Low Sweep gets the job done. Badge 2 is down, and next on the agenda is the Electric Gym in Levencia. Before we stroll down to the next city, we come across another Team Star base, commandeered by the fiery redhead Mela. With the PTSD kicking in, I decided to cheese the game, as it's cheesed me so far, and we managed to jump across the river with a Koraidon, making it to East Area Province 2. We snag a new member for the team, a Wattrel called Silly-Bugger V2. Paired with Volt Absorb, it quickly becomes a prime member on the squad as we reach Levencia. Now it's suggested that we go and take on the Open Sky Titan before taking on the gym. We catch up with Arven and flatten Big Burn with Roxanne, as it only takes 3 smackdowns to do the job. We eat another sandwich and Koraidon gets the ability to swim. We also find out that Arven is literally just trying to make his good boy better. Flying back to Levencia, we do a bit of shopping and push through to the next route. We also encounter our newest friend, High Noon, the Bramblin. Oh yeah, and Coco almost dies because he's squishier than a Tracer trying to 1v1 a Roadhog, but that's beside the point. Coming across a Firestone, we evolve Capskin into Scorvillain. When running across East Area 3, Arven advises that we are approaching the 3rd Titan, but we decide to ignore that and go straight to the next town. Heading through to the Dalizipar passage, Snomnomnom joins the team, is permanently benched, and after a bit of grinding, I finally evolve Silly-Bugger V2 into my new favourite Gen 9 Pokemon, Kilowattrel. Soon after, I go to interact with the raid Battle Den and collect some lead points, and tragedy strikes. Oh no. Oh no. That is not good. I don't have autosaves on. Oh no. Well, that's fun. The game crashes and sets me all the way back to the Sky Titan, as I've turned off autosaves for the sake of the Nuzlocke. After replaying the last hour of lost gameplay and the magic of editing, we're back to where we are. Kind of. We don't have the exact natures of the Pokemon, but everyone was recaught. During the recovery session, Gigavolt evolves into the Absolute Chad Ampharos. After bringing the main squad all up to level 30 and having a picnic or two, we're ready to take on the Electric Gym. As if Nemona knew our every move, upon walking to the gym, she demands we get down to battling. Aside from her stalking, at least her battle theme's good. Keeping things simple, Silly-Bugger's able to end the battle as quickly as we started it. After parting ways with Nemona, we begin the gym trial. The gym leader and streamer Iono farms us for views on Pokemon's equivalent of Twitch, and after playing a game of Where's the Director, she sends her tier 3 subs to do her dirty work. I bribe them with some bathwater and we're able to take her on. Iono continues the stream into the battle. Silly-Bugger pushes through her first 3 Pokemon with the handy Volt Absorb, and then she turns Miss Magius into a big bright light bulb and tries to take him down. But luckily for me, this allows Silly-Bugger to hit her with an Uproar, as Miss Magius is no longer a ghost type. After Iono loses, she drops some pretty good advice, and then we're introduced to the chairwoman of the Pokemon League, Geeta. She clearly doesn't forebode that she'll be important later on, with her "I'm definitely not the champion" aura. We make our way back to the 3rd Titan Pokemon we spotted earlier. Along the way, Banana learns Twin Beam and becomes Farafarig, the palindrome Pokemon. Upon reaching the mine, I spy the strangest looking Pokemon poking its head out of the ground. We play a bit of tag before a 4 times damage Flamethrower makes it turntable and run. Arven catches up to us, we rinse and repeat Flamethrower, slam down another foot long, and Koraidon is able to jump higher than before. Next on our list is to head to the other side of Paldea and return this poor man's wallet. His right-hand man, Hugo, believes that we are harassing him, and challenges us to a fight. Floatzel takes a massive chunk out of High Noon, but somehow lives and clutches the win, and his Clauncher poses a little threat to our Chad Gigavolt. We are then forced to win an auction as the gym test to prove our worthiness. I click the buy it now option and we're good to go. I head back over to the gym to take on Kofu, but before we can, we meet up with Hassel and Rika, 2 members of the Elite Four. After a brief chat, the gym challenge begins. Kofu leads off with a Veluza, a very fast fishy boy, but it's still not quite a match for our Silly-Bugger. Wugtrio is his next mon. Being cautious, I swap into Gigavolt and land a Paralysis, but a Thunder Punch knocks it straight back into the Pokeball. Next is Crodomidol, his ace. We both terrastalize and exchange blows. After a risky critical hit, I heal up Gigavolt before going in for the kill, and Kofu is all washed up. We claim our 4th gym badge and begin the journey to our next city. But before doing so, we use a quick exploit to evolve High Noon into Brambleghast. Starting fresh once again, I head back to Mezagoza to grab a few supplies, and notice that the way to the Pokemon League is actually open. As this counts as a new area, we adopt a new member for the team, Fidoge the Fido. Soon after, I decide that the next best thing to do is to head over to the second Team Star base we skipped earlier. Fighting through the flashbacks, I think we're in a comfortable position to take down the base. Clive and Cassiopeia provide some assistance as I kick down the front door and cause Mela to appear. I lead with Roxanne to take on her Torkoal. It does raise some concerns, as it does have the ability Drought, which could give her some extra oomph she might need to kill one of my mons. I try to outsmart her by using some X special defenses to buff up Roxanne. However, she was more than prepared, as Torkoal has Clear Smog, which resets all stat boosts. I aim to stall out the Drought and get one buff up to get the kill. 2 hits does the job and Reverum comes out to play. I decide that a terastallized Rock Slide would be my best bet and almost kills Reverum in 1 hit. After one last smackdown, it does the trick. We snuffed out Mela's flames. After doing some more backstory and getting a look at her goofy walking animation, the second base is down. Before finishing up, Penny appears and gives us some more rewards, and seems to know a little bit more about Team Star than she lets on. Making our way to West Area Province 3, we decide to grab a new Pokemon. Primeape looks to be the prime candidate here. Alright, I'll show myself out. Salt Boy joins the team and we arrive in Medali. We decide to train up Primeape in preparation for the next challenge. While doing so, Roxanne evolves and learns Hammer Arm. Perfect timing for the normal gym coming up. Fidoge also evolves, but it's benched shortly after as his stats aren't quite what we're looking for.
You didn't make the cut.
Moving down to Lake Casaroya, we encounter a level 51 Slowpoke, which I was completely off guard. I chuck a quick ball at it to secure the capture. Slow Mama joins the squad and goes straight to the PC because it won't follow our commands. I also learnt that Primeape can evolve when it uses its new move Rage Fist 20 times, so we decide to grind a little bit until his anger surpasses his actual physical form as he evolves into Annihilate. Shortly after, Koga finally evolves into Venomoth, and even with the stat boosts, he's still not quite good enough to take things on. We're now ready to take on the gym. Our goal here is to order the secret menu item as we gain clues by looking around town and beating certain trainers. After gathering all the clues, we order the grilled rice balls in a medium serving, extra cooked with Fire Blast style, with a hint of lemon. Sounds palatable? The businessman at the counter reveals himself as the gym leader, Larry, the normal type gym leader. We make our last bit of prep and get ready for the battle. Salt Boy puts in some work, but we have to contend with some yawns from his Kamala. He then whips out the absolute goat of all new evolutions, Dunsparce. It's Dunsparce, but just slightly longer. So it's Dunsparce. Anyway, we fight through the status conditions and Larry sends out his last Pokemon, Staraptor. I take a chance on my Salty Boy being a pure fighting type and going for the close combat and knock it out with 1 hit. Larry hands over the 5th gym badge and we're on our way. We get stopped by Geeta and Nemona is ready to battle. The rain perfectly sets the mood, as if Geeta was a mafia boss telling Nemona to off me because I've learnt too much. Nemona leads off with Lycanroc, which Salty Boy shuts down right away. Next is Goomy, which we swap in a Silly Bucket to try and take her down, and Uproar does the trick. Following this, Pormo comes in, and Banana gets his first real debut in battle, only for him to get paralysed in the first move, but he redeems himself with a critical hit on a Twin Beam. Skelly Dirge is her last ditch effort to take us down. Fearing a snarl damage from it, I swap into Gigavolt and start throwing discharges her way. With a lucky paralyze, we're able to secure the victory. Nemona and Geeta leave, advising that things will only get more difficult from here on out. I then head over to Tagtree Thicket, the location of the next Team Star base. We run into Clive once again, but before jumping into the next major challenge, I catch a Giraffari, the graffiti monkey Pokemon, and we call him the most appropriate name. We move into the base to take them on and dispose of the student guarding the front gate, and begin the raid. Atticus reveals himself in the most Shakespearean manner possible, and the battle begins. He starts off with a Stung Tank, which is a poison dark Pokemon, which throws off my entire psychic strategy. Atticus predicts the swap and then hits Gigavolt with a Toxic and starts to chip away with Venoshock. A few discharges later, and he swaps in Reverum straight away. I recall Gigavolt and send in Banana, but to my surprise, this isn't the big Reverum, rather the normal one. I terastallize Banana to finish it off and his muck that follows through. Now, for the main event. The big Reverum comes out. 2 Twin Beams finish it off and another Team Star member is down. Clive follows up to get some information out of the students and figure out why they started the group. After clearing the base, Cassiopeia calls and reveals that our ultimate goal is to take on the big boss. Penny also arrives to give us some more rewards and adds more to the mystery with her connection with the group. And we're officially at the halfway point, with 3 Titans, 5 badges and 3 Team Star members down. Thanks for sticking with me so far. If you are enjoying the adventure, please consider subscribing. We gather our bearings and head straight for the Delizipar Passage, which is the fastest route to the next gym. Upon reaching Glazido Mountain, our newest member of the team, Low Kicks, is caught, which I cleverly call High Kicks. Making our way up the mountain, we actually arrive at the 8th gym first. I register the Pokemon Center there and we head straight for the isolated city of Montevera, which is only about a minute travel from the last gym for some reason. Now, this gym is actually listed as a ghost gym. With High Kicks' bug and dark typing, he earns a spot on the team straight away, and we prepare for the gym. Starting the gym challenge, we're advised by MC Sledge, or realistically,
"What's up everybody, it's Critical,"
that the leader Rhyme is doing a pre-show and we need to hype up the crowd. We also learn that all of these battles will be double battles to mix things up. After knocking out the first two trainers with little to no problem, MC Sledge wants a piece of the action. His Drift Blim decides to become an outdated meme and almost knocks us to half. Followed up by Sablei's Power Gem, we narrowly avoid Capskin dying. One crunch later and we're onto the leader. Rhyme comes out and busts out some lyrics, and she immediately reminds us that this game would have heavily benefited from having voice acting, perhaps in future titles. She leads off with Bayonet and Mimikyu. I decide to get rid of the Mimikyu first as it poses the biggest threat with its fairy moves. High Kicks takes it out and Capskin moves in swiftly to knock out Bayonet. During this battle we also get to see the evolution of Gravard, Houndstone, and she also throws in Toxtricity as good measure. Predicting a poison move, I terrestrialize High Kicks into a dark type and swap out Capskin into Gigavolt. She changes Toxtricity into a pure ghost type as one throat chop eliminates the problem. Then absolutely out of nowhere, Houndstone uses Play Rough and almost kills High Kicks. Power Gem and Rock Slide knock it down to 20% as it stalls out with Phantom Force. One Power Gem later and we've claimed our 6th badge. Looking at the map, we've got the decision to head to the Quaking Earth Titan or the Psychic Gym. However, since there's a Fairy Team Star member near us, I decide to go and check out the base as this will give us another opportunity to get another team member. We arrive at North Province Area 3 and make our way to the base. Before we can snag a Flamigo, Clive triggers a cutscene as we approach the base. Moving that out of the way, we're able to catch the goofy ass bird and the chat names him Jordan. Upon interacting with the guard at the base, we challenge the leader's family tutor, Harrington. And to our surprise, Old Man Harrington ain't playing around with his level 48 Pokemon. We knock out his team with the Chad Gigavolt, but almost risk losing to his Hatchram. We take his warning and move out of there, as we are not quite ready to take on this base yet with no real method of countering fairy types. We do have Jet Set, however most fairy types double as psychic types. Looking to change up the scenery, we head back to the desert to warm up and take on the Quaking Earth Titan. Upon approaching it, we spot a strange looking Donphan walking about. In comparison to a regular Donphan, this is a big ass Pokemon. With no time like the present, we take it on only for Professor Sada to call us and advise that it's known as Great Tusk, a Pokemon that originates from the Great Crater of Paldea, which is a currently inaccessible area of the map. She tells us that we need to take it out before it causes more damage. Seed Bomb knocks it down to the point where it vanishes to another part of the desert. I wisely go heal to go get my terrestrialization back. We also learn that Great Tusk is a ground fighting Pokemon as per the Pokedex. Before heading back over, I decide to pull out Slow Mama and evolve it into Slowbro. I adjust its moveset so it's actually usable, and I need to check to see if it'll actually listen to me. Unfortunately, it still won't help us. But as a blessing in disguise, the Sandygast we go to test it on uses Destiny Bond of all moves. We get out of there and start heading over to Great Tusk. It slams down a Herba Mystica, and Arven comes out to assist us with taking him down. Arven and I have the same strategy of using Scorvillain to take it out. A strong Seed Bomb knocks it to less than half, and whereas the second one confirms the kill. Another sandwich down, and Arven's Mabostiff is regaining more strength. Koraidon is growing stronger, and gains the ability to glide. Now with Koraidon's abilities, we're able to head back to our family home to the South Paldean Sea to grab a new Pokemon, Barry the Aracuda. We also head over to the West Paldean Sea where we catch Dynamo the Tynamo. Then moving forward to South Area 4, on our way to the next gym, we're able to grab Queenie the Mastiff. We make our way through a cave and along a cliff face walkway, taking on all sorts of trainers, where we reach the Alfredian Cavern, and tragically we kill the Dinio that we encounter there. After recollecting ourselves and leaving the cave, we arrive in South Area Province 6. We encounter an Espathra. We call the fashion Ostrich Cyberb. Barry also evolves into Barraskewda, which guarantees his spot in a box due to his garbage nature. We reach the city and almost like clockwork, I predict that Nemona will be waiting here to challenge us to a battle. She starts with Lycanroc and I mistakenly swap in Capskin as it takes a Rock Slide. but we get the kill with a Seed Bomb. Gigavolt grows high enough in levels to learn Dazzling Gleam just in time to take on her Seaglue. Gigavolt terminates the dragon, and Pawmot comes out. Silly Bugger's Volt Absorb denies any threat that would have, as it goes down to a dual wing beat. With Skelly Dirge coming back in, Chad Gigavolt comes back out to tank a Torch Song and finishes it off with a Discharge. Finally, let's take on the 7th gym. We play a little game of Simon Says with high kicks before we can take on the Diva leader. Things are going quite well. We haven't lost a single team member since Carbon and before the 2nd gym. Tulip, with her very flappy dress, arrives to put our aesthetics in check. She starts off with her own Fragger rig as we begin with low kicks. Low kicks hits her with a stupid 80 base power leech life. Man, I remember when this move was only 20 base power and you can only find these on Zubats. 2 hits and it's down and she's onto her next member, Gardevoir. Now, this is one of the problem Pokemon. With its dual typing of Psychic Fairy, it is one of the best Pokemon in any generation. I go into the old, tried and true Gigavolt to get this done. Following this, she leads in with her own Esperatha. High Kick's Throw Chop shuts it down. Her last Pokemon is Florges. Again, another problem Pokemon. My plan was to stay in with High Kicks and use Leech Life to earn a KO. But after Terastallizing, I realized that it loses its same type attack bonus for Leech Life as it becomes a pure Dark. I predict that it'll probably hit me with a Moonblast before Leech Life can take her down. And even with the health I gained back, a single Moonblast wipes him out. Silly Bugger comes in to finish off Florges, and we earn the 7th gym badge with a little bit of regret. Rika appears and introduces us to another Elite Four member, a young girl called Poppy. Mildly disturbed that a preschooler could potentially kick my ass in the future, we make our way back to the ice gym. Beginning the gym challenge, we complete a very criminally short snowboarding minigame, which really feels like it was a missed opportunity to not make this longer. Next, it's time to take on the leader Grusha. Grusha starts off with Frostmoth. I use Salt Boy as he's the answer to a lot of this gym's problems. A low kick shatters Frostmoth and Beartic, and then Sea Titan comes out, which looks like a heavy unit, so low kick should do the trick. However, Ice Spinner inflicts heavy damage, but it still goes down to the rage of Salt Boy. Grusha's last Pokemon is Altaria, a dragon flying type. Fearing a flying type will end Annihilape's career, I decide to switch into Gigavolt and smack it with a Power Gem. It does a bit of damage for us and I knock it out with a Discharge, leaving it with a Paralysis and knocking it down. Grusha hands over the final gym badge and we've completed our quest to conquer all the gyms. Nemona appears alongside Geeta, advising that we can now take on the Pokemon League, and with the freedom to go capture any Pokemon we want. I set my sights on the North Province to land some new members for the team. Shortly after arriving in North Area Province 1, I spot a Tinkertuff. Hands down, one of the Pokemon I was excited to add to my team, as this thing is a competitive monster, with its great typing of Fairy and Steel. We add Hilda to the team, and quickly evolve her into the absolute monster, Tinkatongue. Then moving through to North Province Area 2, we catch our last major Pokemon, Fungus, which we call a Monkspore, because Reddit's sus. Looking at our team, I decided to get trained on a few Pokemon just to grab some materials so we can produce some TMs. Heading back to the Fairy Team Star Leader, we now have a good counter, Hilda and a Monkspore. Running down the raid rush, we force Ortega out of hiding and the battle ensues. Ortega leads off with a Zoomeril, which takes neutral damage to Hilda's steel moves, so I decide to swap in Gigavolt and land the kill. Next is Wigglytuff, which we swap back into Hilda to potentially build up some attack boosts. Unfortunately, all of Ortega's Pokemon carry Charm, which works against my strategy by lowering my attack stat. After Wigglytuff goes down, Dashbun comes in to spam Play Roughs, as he gets extremely lucky with attack drops, countering all my X-Attack boosts. I swap into Gigavolt and Hilda to reset stats in preparation of Revavroom, but I get constantly plagued by bad luck with being outsped and missing moves, and I question how many times can they spam Play Rough. This move only has 10 PP by the way. After we deal with that nightmare, Revavroom comes in next, and does a fair chunk of damage with his Steamroller. I return with my 160 base power Gigaton Hammer, but it does less than 35%. After looking for a solution, I swap into Slow Mama for her debut, and I get an excellent read on a Confuse Ray, as Slow Mama has own tempo. I start hitting it with Psychics, chipping away and spamming potions to squeeze out the win. Ortega is now out of commission, and we get some more backstory as we head for our next objective. Upon checking the map, I realize that we have not caught a Pokemon in the very top section. Our encounter for the Scorat Trail is the regional tentacle, Toadschool, but we call him Little Fella just to the way he runs.
This There's a little fella on this. Shut the
and promptly level him into Toadscruel. Moving around the lake, we begin taking on trainers in preparation for the next Titan Pokemon. While versing a trainer, I swap in Silly-Bugger on a Frostmoth as he was our best switch at the time. Dual Wing Beat doesn't quite kill Frostmoth as he takes a Blizzard which instantly knocks him out. This one actually hurt big time. This is the first major party death we've had since the very first Team Starbase. After Slow Mama puts Frostmoth on trial for murder, we rearrange the team in preparation for the next Titan. Trying to regain some team members, I head to the North Palladian Sea where we catch a Veluza, which we call Silver Bullet. To be honest, he kinda caught me. We then head east of Levencia to the East Palladian Sea and catch Aquadolphin, the Finizen, which we kinda can't evolve without a multiplayer connection, so this would be our very last available capture for the remainder of the run. After fully re-evaluating the entire team, I decided the best lineup would be Gigavolt, Salt Boy, Hilda, Silver Bullet, Capskin, and Roxanne. We head into the Titan fight, and this would give me the best coverage considering this is listed as the False Dragon Titan. Approaching the Titan's location, we find a bunch of Tatsugiri beached on an island, and we spot a much larger Tatsugiri which gets eaten by the Donzo. Gigavolt scares off the Donzo with a discharge and we follow it to the next island. It smashes through the rocks to make a cave and eats some of the Herba Mystica. Arven joins the fight to take on the powered up Dodonzo, but it quickly kills Arven's Greedent. Gigavolt knocks it out, however it's not done. Tatsugiri powers up and wants to take us on next. Dragon Pulse from this little sushi does a lot of damage to Greedent and eventually kills it. We call it close with Gigavolt as he gets splashed with some dirty water but pulls through to the end. We find the last Herba Mystica. Arven makes his final sandwich which allows Koraidon to climb walls. Arven almost loses hope and the sandwich doesn't seem to make Mabosstiff better, but a Christmas miracle happens and he's back to his happy self. Truly, Arven just wanted to get his best bud better. Sada also contacts us to advise that Koraidon has gained all its powers back except its ability to battle. Arven is surprised that Sada has contacted us, and we are told that Arven is the only one that can reach the professor's lab. She then tells us to go to the lighthouse where we first met him, so we can go to her lab. Arven then fills us in and advises that the professor is actually his mum, and this is the first time he's heard her voice in years. He tells us to meet him there as he owes us for helping him out, and questions where his mother's been all this time. Before heading to the lab, I feel quite confident to take on the last Team Star base to finish up all the loose ends. Just before the Team Star base, I take on a trainer with a belly bolt, which Salt Boy is pretty confident in taking down with a low kick, which does a little more than half. However, this triggers Belly Bolt's ability, Electromorphosis, which charges up the Pokemon's next move when they take damage. Not only does it land a Zap Cannon, but it gets a critical hit, resulting in an OKO. Processing this information, I swap in Silver Bullet to kill the bastard of a frog, and I make preparations for the next raid base. I choose Jordan to replace our fighting type as we head for the gate. Surprisingly, Clive is already talking with the leader Eri, and a subordinate comes along to convince Eri to head back inside as she'll get rid of us. We hit her with the Uno reverse card and start the raid, but it doesn't take long for Eri to come back out on her Starmobile as we begin the last Team Star boss fight. She leads off with Toxicroak and we respond with Gigavolt, land a great paralysis and knock it out within 2 hits. Not before it punches us with a sucker punch. Next is Parsimian. I thought Silver Bullet would be the answer, but it seems that Parsimian actually has access to Seed Bomb. I hard switch into Capskin, aiming to block another Seed Bomb, but it uses a close combat and does way too much damage than I expected. I then hard swap again into Gigavolt, which we're met with a Rock Tomb. Fed up with these antics, I go for a Discharge to get rid of it. Next is her Annihilate, which puts me in a very tricky spot. I figure my best play is to go for Hilda and make her a pure fairy and start swinging with fairy moves. But we get hit with a close combat which still does a lot of damage regardless, but our play rough misses. Annihilate uses close combat once again, which leaves us on 40 HP, but since its defense has dropped so much, it seals its fate for playtime. Eri's next Pokemon is Lucario, which again is a problem Pokemon with its steel typing. Capskin seems to be the go-to answer, however, with its low health, it's not an option. I figure my best play is to swap back into Gigavolt and stall to heal and hope for a paralysis. I use Thunder Wave to mass heal the team in preparation for Revavroom. In a good spot after healing, Lucario is down and Revavroom is on deck. A very scary high horsepower knocks Gigavolt past half, but Dazzling Gleam does a good chunk on the rebound. I decide to swap back into Silver Bullet, fearing a critical high horsepower as it uses Shift Gear, which buffs its speed by 2 stages and its attack by 1. Not great news, but I hope that Silver Bullet can kill it with a Psycho Cut. After another Shift Gear, I get extremely worried as Psycho Cut only does 15% damage. It sets up a third Shift Gear, Meanwhile, Stamina is boosting its defense. A high horsepower knocks it to just below half, and it only has about 20% life left. I go for the Psycho Cut hoping to land the kill, but Silver Bullet goes down. I switch into Hilda and aim for a play rough, hoping that I can live anything that's thrown at me. However, I was wrong. Reverum uses its signature move, Spin Out. A base 100 steel type move on my pure fairy Hilda. She didn't stand a chance. I decided to use Jordan as a noble sacrifice and heal up Gigavolt, but oddly enough, Jordan lives on 21 HP but can't confirm the kill. Jordan goes down, and Gigavolt saves the day with a last minute dazzling gleam. We won the battle, but at what cost? Cassiopeia then contacts us and congratulates us on beating all of the bosses, and then reveals that the big boss of Team Star we've been looking for is indeed Cassiopeia. They then tell us to meet them in the schoolyard after dark, and that Clive should come too. Clive and I decide that we should prepare before heading over. After the massive losses in the last battle, I decide that my reserves need to be trained up, so I have the best team possible moving into the next few challenges as we are approaching the end of the game. After looking up some tips on how to grind up my low level mobs, I researched that Chansey farming is the best bet, and it's rather easy through the game's picnic feature. We evolve Queenie into Mabostiff, and Dynamo evolves into Eel Electric. I train up the team to rough levels of 60 to 65 and head back to Mezagoza to buy some battle items. I change Slow Mama's nature to a better one through the use of one of the mints. The dream team is Gigavolt, Slow Mama, Mabostiff, Capskin, Roxanne, and lastly, Jet Set. Thinking ahead, I believe it might be best to go and complete Arven's story, that way he may give us access to Koraidon in battle. So I leg it over to the lighthouse on Poco Path to catch up with him. Arven and I enter the lab and we learn more about Koraidon and Professor Sada. We find the lab completely deserted, but Sada appears on the screen advising that she needs our help. She is stuck in Area 0 with no way out, but we can use the Scarlet Book to assist her. But we should take care as Area 0 is a dangerous place, and that we might struggle without allies. Arven decides to make sure that we are ready and strong enough to take on Area 0, so he requests us to battle. Arven starts off with his Greedent and immediately scares us with an earthquake, but Gigavolt shuts it down. Next is his own Gargankle. We throw a wave or two at it and take it out, but it is set up Stealth Rocks. I stay in with Slow Mama and become a pure Psychic type to set up a light screen. We play a little bit of back and forth with Toadscruel and its Spore, but we land the KO. Next is Score Villain, which I decide Jet Set is the best switch. Poison Jab almost kills his Score Villain, however, an ESP Headbutt almost takes him out. I jab it once more and land the kill. Cloister comes out to play, which we swap back into Gigavolt for an easy knockout. And lastly, his boy Mabostiff comes out. I stay in with Gigavolt, heal up, and Static does its job. I follow in with Roxanne, start throwing hands to finish him off. With Arven defeated, I believe we've made a wise choice in bringing our A game before completing this section. To my surprise, Arven suggests that we should heed Sada's advice. He recommends that we should get someone who's at a champion level battler and someone who is good with tech. To move on, we'll need to complete the Pokemon League story and the Team Star story. We then head to the school to bring the final fight to Cassiopeia. Upon reaching the school, the person standing in our way is none other than Clive. He finally reveals himself as Director Clavel, but he also reveals himself as the boss of Team Star, Cassiopeia. He insists that all the phone calls were pre-recorded. With his very believable story, he challenges us to a fight to decide the fate of Team Star. His team doesn't pose much of a threat, but something to note is that Clavel takes the remaining starter Pokemon that wasn't chosen. In my case, he has Meowscara, which was the Sprigatito that wasn't chosen. We finish the fight and Clavel comes clean that he's not really the Team Star's leader, but he needed to test us before we try to take them on. We wait until nighttime before we arrive in the schoolyard so we can finally see who the mastermind is behind Team Star. Upon reaching the battlefield, Cassiopeia reveals herself to be Penny. Surprise, surprise. She fills us in that she was able to reward us with as many LP as possible through her hacking skills. Clive also arrives just in time to film the battle for the other Team Star members. We begin the battle with Penny and she reveals that her team is full of evolutions. We rock out to our absolute banger of a theme and knock them out one by one. We take out her last Pokemon, Sylveon, with Jet Set and Penny is finished. Penny comes clean and lays out the reasoning behind the whole operation. Clavel responds by bringing out all the Team Star leaders where they tell Penny that they wanted to get to know her, not Cassiopeia. Clavel appoints them to an academy-approved position as student training coaches. Penny officially accepts this role as it allows them and the Team Star members to stay together, and then we are suggested to take on the Pokemon League. With this being the last major challenge left, We prepare the team and head over. Before we can even take on the Elite Four, Rika actually sits us down for an interview to ensure that we're ready to take this on. As a side note, you can actually fail this and get kicked out. But after answering all the questions and declaring that Larry is best lad, we're able to head through to the first Elite Four member. First up is Rika herself. Rika uses ground type Pokemon, so I U-turn out of there with Jet Set and straight into Slow Mama. I take out Wishcast and Dugtrio is up next. Taking advantage of Intimidate, I use Queenie to lower its attack and heal up. Slow Mama follows up and wipes the floor with it. Her Donphan and Camerupt didn't stand a chance from Surfed, as her last Pokemon is Clodsire. I use my Intimidate strategy and then swap back into Slow Mama, but totally forgot that Clodsire has Water Absorb. So then we have a stall battle between Slow Mama, Clodsire, as it switches between entry hazards, Protect, and Earthquake. We eventually squeeze out the win and move on to the next member. Next up is the savage looking 4-year-old Poppy. Poppy starts off with my personal hated Pokemon, Copperajar. I absolutely hate this Pokemon. I U-turn out, Intimidate, and swing in with some crunches, as it sets up some Stealth Rocks. Taking down the big bad elephant, Corviknight follows up. I decide to set up some Hone Claws to build up some attack boosts and start attacking. Body Press almost knocks Queenie out, but Crunch does enough damage to clutch the win. I stay in with Queenie, heal up and munch through the rest of her team, although her Pokemon after Magnezone is Tinkaton. I weigh out my options as I can't risk getting hit with a fairy move. I boldly predict that Tinkaton will turn into a pure steel type, so I use Capskin to hit it with a flamethrower, which doesn't quite do enough damage. I take a little too much damage from the rocks, and Stone Edge forces me to swap back into Slow Mama. I tank the hits and slowly start chipping away with Shadow Ball. I notice that Magnezone's light screen finally wears off, and we're able to earn the victory after another Shadow Ball. Surprisingly, the next Elite Four member is none other than the 5th gym leader, Larry. He reveals at the start of the battle that he's not using normal types in this fight, rather he's going to use flying types. Jet Set pokes Tropius with a poison jab, and Staraptor comes out to play. Gigavolt is the perfect answer for this, and knocks it out with a discharge. Larry goes to use Altaria next, and I have a genius moment as I taught Roxanne Ice Punch before coming into the Elite Four. With a 4 times effectiveness, it's down and out. After dancing with Oricorio, I change back into Slow Mama to deal with Flamingo. Flamingo goes to the Brave Bird and dies to the recall, which means that we've beaten the 3rd member. The last member is Hassel. He specializes in dragon types and starts off with Noivern. I tag out with Jet Set, land a poison point, and change into Roxanne. To my surprise, Noivern actually hits us with Super Fang and dropping us to half. I do a safety heal and take it out with Ice Punch. He then swaps into Dragolich. I use Gigavolt with his bulky defense to chip away at it. Following this, Frapple comes out to play, which Gigavolt knocks it out with one Dazzling Gleam, and I rinse and repeat with Haxorus. Baxicalibur is Hassel's ace, which looks to be the regional dragon, which is later revealed to be a dragon ice Pokemon. Its signature move, Glaive Rush, knocks Gigavolt down to 92, but it can't withstand a Dazzling Gleam. And with this, the Elite Four challenge is complete. Only the champion remains. I take the lift to the roof, where we meet the champion Geeta. She tells me that she won't be holding back, but her team would say otherwise. She leads off with Espartha. I U-turn out, inflict poison, change into Slow Mama, set up a light screen, and her bird dies of poison. Her next Pokemon is the evolved form of Bisharp, King Gambit, which, to be honest, this is a cool evolution. This is awesome, and this should have been her ace. I decide the best play is Roxanne's Hammer Arm to KO it, but Roxanne does take a respectable 45% damage from Iron Head. Her Avalog meets our Capskin's Flamethrower, and Veluzo is dealt with by Gigavolt. And we don't even have to talk about Go-Go. Her last Pokemon is Lamora, a name I don't recognize. This Pokemon is something we can't even encounter before we reach the end of the game, but we quickly find out that this is pretty much entry hazard the Pokemon. Its unique ability sets up poison spikes upon getting hit, but it reveals its typing when it terrestrialized to a rock type. I change into Slow Mama, which cops a few Terra Blasts, and it earns a KO with a Solid Surf. And with this, Geeta is finished. We are congratulated by the Elite Four and Geeta. Nemona meets us at the base of the tower and wants us to be rivals forever. Naturally, she wants to battle. However, Geeta suggests that we should battle somewhere special, so we decide to battle Nemona at Mezagoza. We head down to the town, and we are treated to a very nice cutscene, which would have been much more impactful with voice acting. Maybe next game. Everyone, including the members of the Elite Four, pop down to check out the action. The battle kicks off with Champion Nemona's theme, as she sends in Lycanroc. Our U-turn poison combo works a charm, and Queenie finishes it off as Lycanroc sets up some Stealth Rocks. I make a somewhat bad switch into Roxanne, hoping to kill her Pawnmont with an Earthquake, but Roxy gets hit with a close combat, and due to the defense drop, I believe we're able to do just enough to land that KO. Orthworm is taken out by a flamethrower, and I respond to Goodra with Gigavolt. A few dazzling gleams disperse Goodra as Dun Dunsparce is her next Pokemon. Gigavolt stays in to show why he's the MVP of this Nuzlocke. She's down to her last Pokemon, Skelly Dredge. Slow Mama tanks the Shadow Ball and sets up a light screen. I heal up to give myself a bit more breathing room and drop a Tidal Wave. I predict the next Shadow Ball by swapping in Jet Set to finish her off with Poison Jab, and with this, Nemona is defeated and is more excited than ever and wants to battle again. We fade into the night as Victory Road is completed. Shortly after, Arven contacts us to let us know that we should be ready to head into Area 0 as he's got 2 allies to help us. We head over to Zero Gate, just outside of Medali Town, to meet him there. He reveals that Koraidon was actually born at the bottom of Area 0 crater, and we should head inside to meet the other 2 teammates. The endgame story, the way home begins. Once inside, we regroup with Nemona and Penny. Nemona, with her battle prowess, is happy to take on any challenge, and Penny is able to help us with any tech-related issues. Sada interrupts our meeting and notices that Nemona and Penny have joined. However, she notes some very odd information that Arven wouldn't have specified to her, such as their student numbers. She requests us to make our way to the bottom of the great crater of Paldea, and we should use the elevator to do so. Sada asks if we have Koraidon and advises that he will be able to assist us with getting to the bottom safely, as there's no direct route to the bottom. With a little peer pressure and motivation, we climb all aboard and make our way to the bottom. The team reach the bottom safely in a world that looks far excluded from the Paldea above. Cascading waterfalls, tall cliffs, and rough terrain, along with plenty of wild Pokemon wandering around. Koraidon returns to its Pokeball, and Sada reveals that she's locked inside her Zero lab and cannot leave. There are 4 locks throughout the area in substations. Our quest is to release all these locks so we can free Sada. The 4 of us head off to find the first lab. This is the section of the game that I was the most excited to talk about in this video. The atmosphere, the music, the mystery of Area 0 is slowly being uncovered. The fact that Nemona, Penny, and Arven follow you during this section and chat with each other gives me a great hope to say that the next Pokemon game will be a grand adventure between a group of friends. We arrive at the first station where we spot a Glamora, and this gets in between us and the first station. This means that Geeta has come to Area 0 in the past, as this is the only place you can get one. With Nemona's assistance, we open the first lab and disarm the lock. The professor informs us that these labs were made 87 years ago to survey Area 0. The second lab is only a little way down from the first, and upon arriving here, we spot an unusual looking Jigglypuff. I come to Penny's aid and take on the primal looking Jigglypuff known as Screamtail. After defeating it, we head inside and release the second lock. Penny begins to question what is happening here. Arven notes that the Scarlet book does note that there are monsters wandering around Area 0 that look similar to Pokemon, but due to their ferocious nature, they might be something more. We determine that these aren't regular Pokemon and to be on guard. The professor fills us in and advises that these are Pokemon that actually existed in the ancient past, and her lab contains a time machine which is bringing these Pokemon forward to Area 0. Sada wants to tell us more when we meet face to face, so we move down to the third lab, and along the way, the team learns a little bit more about each other. And I kinda wish this occurred earlier in the game, as they all have great chemistry with each other. Upon reaching the third lab, Penny predicts that we'll be attacked again. And just like clockwork, we're attacked by Great Tusk, only a little bit smaller than the Titan we fought previously. Arven and I take this out and head inside of the third lab. Penny notes that Koraidon is likely one of those Pokemon that existed in the past, and perhaps that's why it's here now through the use of the time machine. Sada confirms that Koraidon is indeed the first Pokemon retrieved through the use of the time machine, and confirms that it's an ancient version of Silazar. She also notes that she was not able to bring more than 2 Koraidon through the use of the time machine. Nemona suggests that the 2 Koraidon could be family, and we should try finding it while we're here. We release the third lock and make our way deeper into Area 0. The frequency of the primal Pokemons begin to increase as we make our way through the caves. The team spots the next station and we make our way carefully down, but we also note that the crystals in the area resemble terastallizing crystals. We finally arrive at the 4th station, which looks a little bit more damaged than the rest. We ask Sada what's happened here, however she doesn't seem to be making any sense, repeating herself multiple times. I release the 4th lock, and Sada suggests that she had signal interference, which Arven doesn't believe. I should also mention that we can catch Pokemon here, but I've decided against doing that as this would go against the spirit of the story. We finally arrive at the very bottom of the crater, and Sada contacts us. She advises that the locks are now open, and now we can open the gate. However, there are dangerous Pokemon inside, and we need to prepare with all 4 of us working together to get through the challenge. Arven says that Koraidon should help us fight as we need the extra strength, so we let him out and open the gate. Upon doing so, the other Koraidon appears, however our buddy seems to be scared. The other Koraidon loses interest and heads straight into the lab. The team speculate that Koraidon could be the dangerous Pokemon the Professor mentioned, however, the Professor mentioned that they'd come from the inside. Right on cue, a massive primal Pokemon surround us. A quick few battles and we're slowly losing ground. The team tell us to move ahead with Koraidon and help the Professor. We reach the completely run-down laboratory with a hunched over Sada sitting on a chair. She starts talking strangely and then springs to life. The other Koraidon appears and Sada returns it to a Pokeball and confirms that she owns it. She reveals that our Koraidon fled as it lost the territory battle with hers. Sada also advises us that she's not the true Professor Sada. She was an AI created by the Professor with all her memories and mannerisms. She states that Professor died in an accident which occurred in the 4th lab, which we passed through previously. Sada threw herself in front of our Koraidon to protect it. She tells us the entire time she's been in communication with us, she has been the AI, but she wanted to put a stop to the time machine. We head down to the time machine's location and ask AI Sada what happened to the real Sada, and she tells us that the wounds that she received were too great and that this was the backup plan. She also says that the energy that the crystals are providing are keeping her active, and this is the reason why she cannot leave. I ask her more about the time machine and where she explains the method. Pokeballs are sent to the past and capture the Pokemon. Then these are brought to the present. The time machine could send someone to the past, however it would not be guaranteed that they could come back. The time machine is still running and bringing Pokemon through. The Professor now wishes to stop this as it could cause the balance of Paldea to be shifted with the ancient Pokemon wandering around the region and causing major destruction. We agree to put a stop to the time machine, even though this will trample the original Professor's dream. Reaching the time machine, the AI Sada tells us that we need to place the Scarlet book in the machine to begin the shutdown process. But she also warns us that she has an override protocol which forces her to protect the time machine as she will shut down as well. She then tells us to put our feelings aside and do our best to defeat her. With the warning, we begin the shutdown sequence as AI Sada tells us to defeat her. With the absolute banger of a battle theme, Sada summons her first Pokemon from the past, Slitherwing, the ancient form of Volcarona. We lead in with Jet Set, hoping that Poison Jab will do the trick, as we discover that Slitherwing is actually a fighting bug type. It almost takes us out with a Zen Headbutt, which we U-turn, inflict poison, and change into Slow Mama. It then hits us with a Lunge, which also drops us below half, but we land the KO. Her next Pokemon is Fluttermane, an ancient form of Mischievous. I change out to Gigavolt, deal some damage, and land a Paralysis. Heal and take it out. Brute Bonnet is next, so I tag in Capskin to hit it with Flamethrower. We connect, but we get hit with a beefy payback. Since we outspeed Bonnet, I decide to go for another Flamethrower, but Sada is prepared with a Sucker Punch, and Capskin goes down. It hurts losing a key member this late in the run. I decide that our next best option is to use Queenie for Intimidate, and heal a few of our mons. I decide to build up some stat boosts and finish it with a Crunch. Her next threat is Screamtail. I decide to use Jet Set as it would be our best way to take it out. It cops another Zen Headbutt, but we squeeze out the win. Her 5th Pokemon is Sandy Shocks, an ancient form of Magneton. We switch to Roxanne, and unfortunately, since it'll outspeed us, it'll result in a kill trade with ground type moves. We use Slow Mama to go in and confirm the kill, even breaking through Paralysis. Her last Pokemon is Roaring Moon, the strongest of her ancient Pokemon, which closely resembles Mega Salamence rather than normal Salamence. Gigavolt tanks a powered up Earthquake and shuts it down with Dazzling Gleam. We end the battle and shut down the time machine. The rest of the team catches up with us, and AI Sada and Arven almost have a heartwarming event before the Paradise Protection Protocol activates, which locks all Pokeballs except those with Sada's ID. AI Sada tells us to flee as she's been taken over by the protocol. She then calls forth her own Koraidon. With our team locked down, we can only use our own Koraidon as it is Sada's originally. It regains its battle form and we're ready to have a legendary fight. Both Koraidon exchange blows until we're able to Terrasilize, which changes it into a pure Dragon type and allows us to push through with a Terra Blast to knock out Sada's Koraidon. And we defeat the Paradise Protection Protocol. We are praised by the AI Sada and says with our own abilities, we can take on any challenge. With her presence, the time machine will truly not shut down. She leaves us and takes the time machine to transport herself to the past, so it shuts down the machine. But she can also live out her dream of seeing the ancient world. With Sada leaving, the time machine finally turns off. The gang and I decided it would be best to return back to the surface and head home. On the road back to Mezagoza, with the end of Adventure Blues, Nemona suggests that we take the long road home as our Nuzlocke adventure comes to a close. The credits roll, and we take a moment to reflect on our fallen comrades. Thank you for joining me on this absolute monster of a video. The script alone took about a week to write. Over 30 hours of streaming and time to edit. If you have watched it to this point, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the journey, and at a minimum, I hope I kept you company. I'd also like to shout out Todoroki, who completed the amazing thumbnail artwork and the art you see here in the end credits. Please check out their amazing artwork on Twitter. As always, it was Dwayne here from DewyHQ. I'll see you in the next video.